Hi there, my name's Starling. I'm a clinical aromatherapist, and in this video, I want to do a introduction, I suppose, towards my theories when it comes to essential oil and depression and how I address them in my practice. So, I myself don't suffer from depression in any clinical sense. I can go through spots of it, sometimes maybe a week or so, but that's few and far between to the point that it's not a problem in my life by any measure. But that being said, I have lived with depression my entire life. My father and my husband both suffer from depression, and I know that's some pretty Freudian stuff right there. But I've never had to deal with it inside my own head, but I've had to live with it. And through those experiences, I've kind of developed a bit of a theory when it comes to depression, and I use that when I am with clients. So, my father and my husband are very similar, yet very different people. And I feel like that has influenced my opinions. I never noticed anything wrong when I was growing up, but I think that's pretty normal for a lot of people. Your parents try to shelter you from negative things. But I do remember just weird stuff from time to time. But it wasn't until I was in high school and my father actually attempted suicide that everything kind of came up to the surface and I became very aware as to what was happening around me because my parents couldn't really hide it anymore. That being said, um, I don't know. I don't remember too much about what my father's exact diagnosis was or the medications that he went through to treat his depression. But I've been through that with my husband. So my husband and I pretty much have been on a journey towards his mental health since the day we met. And I say that because it was actually the day that we met that my husband had one of his suicide attempts. Mind you, it had nothing to do with me. We actually met. I was moving some friends into an apartment building, and he lived across the landing in it and actually shared a balcony. It was a very small um, apartment building, like 1903 built, so it wasn't some kind of big high rise thing. So, that's how we met. And it was very brief. And later, as he kind of begun to become friends with my friends and hang out with them, and therefore hang out with me, that I got to know him. But he has suffered from depression his entire life. His mother suffers from depression, and I'm pretty sure she's schizoaffected. Um, or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not too familiar with her own mental health issues. But what's interesting that I found in that is that on my father's side, it's not inherited. I don't suffer from depression in any clinical way, neither does my sister. And as far as I'm aware, most people on his side don't either. But on my husband's side, it seems to be a inherited or at least a learned behavior to some extent. But that being again said, my husband's mental illness and his mother's mental illness have very different backgrounds within themselves. My husband suffers from chronic pain in a traumatic childhood, and I think those things have affected his mental well-being and depression. And I do believe that if we can solve or at least get a better handle on his chronic pain, a lot of his depressive issues would probably go away. I don't think they'd be cured because there's a lot of personal history and possible inheritance and things like that that won't just go away by solving the source of his chronic pain. But I do believe that it would be a big difference. So, with all that being said, what's my point? Well, My point is that each and every person who has depression has their own story. They could have inherited a clinical depression on a biological level, so their brain naturally doesn't produce enough serotonin or whatever. It could also be a learned thing. In my family, our learned behavior is anxiety, but it's, you can, as a child, view the adults in your life suffering from depression, especially like in stressful times, for example, and then you could possibly learn that as a form of a coping skill. But I do also think that depression can be actually a form of PTSD. Perhaps things happening to you as a child that you have repressed or suppressed, and it's manifesting itself in depression in your, teenage and into your adult years. And of course, all of these things can be in one person. And also there's also, I think more like present shock can cause depression too. So for example, loss of a job or a loss of a loved one or the end of a marriage and things like that can also trigger depression. And of course, all these things can be true in one person. And then you get on to the topic of medications. And that in itself really is how I feel when it comes to trying to use essential oils to cure depression. Because if you have been in the situation yourself, be it the person who is trying to get the right drugs or being a loved one who's beside them and helping them on their journey towards mental health, you know that it is not easy trying to find the right drugs for your depression. There's families of drugs that can do very different things, and each person is different. Your brain chemistry is different. And with that, you can eventually find a drug that is working for you. But that takes at least a month to find out. And then you have the chance and actually a pretty good likelihood that eventually that drug's no longer going to work for you. And so you have to go through everything again. And that doesn't even count the side effects. I remember one drug, I can't remember the name of it. It was maybe a few years ago now that my husband was trying. And it was so awful that I canceled it on him. I phoned his doctor, had him on the phone. I'm like, no, he's not doing this anymore. Because it made him so short-tempered and almost cruel that I didn't know who he was, because that is not my husband. My husband is a very loving and very even-tempered person. I'm the one who has the short fuse, very much so. But I really can probably count on less than 5 fingers the number of times that he has actually raised his voice to me outside of him being on that one specific drug. He is not an angry person. He is not a cruel person, but that drug did it. And I had to kick him off of it. I'm like, I'm not living with this drug in this house. And so with the struggle that it takes to find the right medication, I've realized that saying that one specific essential oil can cure or treat your depression is, excuse my language, but bullshit. No, because smell, like brain chemistry, is so individual that you cannot put out a blanket statement saying that any time you're depressed, just go and smell some ylang ylang. No, Karen, no. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people who suffer from depression and have to deal with people who think like this want to throw in a few extra swear words and maybe even some physical gestures towards those people, even though they are meaning well. But it gets so frustrating. And as a clinical aromatherapist, I hear these things a lot, even from clients saying, oh yeah, my Datura rep told me to go smell some jasmine. And I'm all, oh my God. You know why she told you to go smell some jasmine from doTERRA? doTERRA, sorry, doTERRA's a plant. doTERRA, yeah, go look at the price tag. That's why. That's my opinion. But no, I do not think that smelling grapefruit oil is going to cure your depression. Can it help? Absolutely. And I don't mean the grapefruit. I mean essential oils in general. We do know that smell has a very, very powerful hold over us. I can remember every single time that I smell CK1. I remember Christmas when I was 10 years old. My mom got us this cheap knockoff of CK1 because it was the mid-90s and it was the biggest thing in the world. And I opened up this present and I got the Melancholy and Infinite Sadness by the Smashing Pumpkins. So every time I even smell CK1, I also think of Christmas, but I also think of that album. And so it takes me to places. Those places tend to be pretty happy and innocent and blissfully ignorant time of being a child and not realizing how much of your personal world is falling apart around you, but your parents are hiding it really, really well. And so to me, that's a happy place. But what if, let's say, I'm going to try not to be too blunt about this and trigger anybody because I do know how that feels to happen. Let's say you are a female and somebody tries to overpower you, put it that way, and they are drenched in CK1. How can I tell you, oh, just go smell CK1? It's going to remind you of your childhood when you were 10 years old in the early 90s. No, when you smell that, you can become absolutely terrified and triggered and have a panic attack. Yeah, so me saying that, oh, just go smell some rose oil, that's going to make your depression better, is one woefully ignorant of how depression works and why it exists within a person, and two, just insensitive, I feel. Now, I have clients who suffer from depression, and they come to me because they want something to help. Because even if you're on antidepressants, that doesn't mean that you're always not depressed anymore. You can still have bouts of depression even on antidepressants, which is why part of my theory is it's not just brain chemistry. There's probably other stuff going on that triggers these episodes. That's why therapy works really well too. It may, be the long run cure and takes a lot of work and unfortunately a lot of time and a whole lot of money, but it can help big time. So they want something to help them when their medications aren't quite cutting it, but they don't want to switch, and they're either not going to therapy or they're not really achieving much from it. And by the way, sometimes if you're not achieving much from your therapy, it could just be a therapist, and it's an important relationship. Just a side note, find the right therapist that fits you, because if you're not with the right therapist, you're not going to get far. Anyways, so they come to me and they say, I want something that can maybe help me, put me in a good mood, or lift my energy up a bit when I'm having like a low day. And so I will work with them personally, going through not only scents that they like, but their medical history, Karen. Oh my goodness. Because drugs can be affected by the essential oils you use. They can be affected by the liver enzymes not being able to metabolize the toxins out, so they can hurt you that way, or they can make them inert and make them not function in your body. So just going and saying, oh, just go smell some peppermint without asking the person their medical history is really dangerous. And actually, peppermint oil is surprisingly more dangerous than you think it is. So I do not believe, and I will never do a video saying how to cure depression with these 5 essential oils or something like that. No, because I know it's not that simple. I need to know your medical history. I need to know how your depression works with you, what happens from it, where is it coming from? Is it PTSD triggered? Is it inherited? Is there like a sudden shock? You're depressed because your wife left you, kind of thing. Is this a learned behavior? You were adopted, but your adopted mother suffered from depression, and so you learned that from a young age as being a form of a coping skill. How is the depression being manifested within you? What drugs are you on? for depression? What drugs are you on for anything else? Are you on SSRIs and anticoagulants, for example? I need to know that. And then I need to sit down with you and go over the types of smells that you like. Because although all these aromatherapy charts that exist in my life, they don't have rosemary down as an antidepressant, for example, just hypothetical. But what if you really like rosemary? Who am I to say that, oh no, you can't smell that. That won't work for depression because some books doesn't have it listed there. No. If you find that rosemary lifts your spirits and gives you a bit of energy, and you're not, and you don't have epilepsy or something, then go for it. Just because some book or some website doesn't have your favorite oil listed as something that can help treat depression doesn't mean it can't, because the mind is so individual, and that goes for anxiety or insomnia and things like that. I mean, well, insomnia is a little bit more physical, but restless mind and things like that. You can't really predict what that's going to do for a person because you don't know what smells they like or what triggers them. And they've done studies. I think it might have been the Marketplace on the CBC, where they put a guy in a room and they gave him a very difficult test to do, and they pumped in there some kind of like evergreen smell. And the next time he went in, they pumped that smell in, even though he wasn't doing the test, and his blood pressure actually got raised and he became agitated. So, no, I cannot tell you what essential oils are going to help you treat your depression, and they will not, on any level, cure your depression. No, essential oils cannot cure your post-traumatic stress, painful childhood and inherited disbalance of chemicals in your brain depression. That is so ignorant and just belittling to how detrimental depression can be on a person's life. Anyways, that's my rant. I hope this makes sense. I just don't believe that I can tell you without knowing you that some essential oil is all you need to pull up your bootstraps and just put a smile on your face and fake it till you make it, because all of that is just bunk. If you suffer from depression and you're curious if essential oils can potentially help you, first, understand the drugs that you are on. Second, look into the side effects of those essential oils that you're curious about, because even the most innocent seeming essential oils can have hardcore side effects. The biggest one in my book is blue German chamomile. That essential oil will mess up your drugs big time. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. I have my email address in the description of this video if you want to ask me any questions more privately. Please do your research, and remember that for the love of God, please do not eat essential oils.